All right. Hey, everybody. It's Jon Ray with Musing Wizard. I am joined by a new friend, Kenji, today, and we are going to be exploring a plethora of different items, everything from Bitcoin and crypto to the rise of AI. And I think where it would be interesting to take this conversation is, can these things be spiritual? Are they benevolent for humanity? And if they are, what does that look like? How can we put energy into that? And if they aren't, how can we Aikido our way out of any attack that might be coming with that, so that we can continue to thrive and live lives of abundance and use tools to our advantage rather than feeling beat down by them. So Kenji, thanks for being here. One, just appreciate you being here and holding space, but I know that you have been exploring everything from spirituality to cryptos. So maybe you can intro us in just what your current perspective is and where you think we should take this conversation today.
Thanks, John. Pleasure, man. Thanks so much for having me here. Love it. Nice to see the beautiful wall behind you. I got into crypto probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been into it very curiously, I guess, coming from a spiritual perspective as well, because of the nature of DeFi, decentralized web, the people kind of taking power back with the finances. As we know, we live in a big banking system and it's a centralized institution for where money comes from. So I definitely saw this beautiful little spark of, internet and technological creation that really resonated with spiritual values for me, of the people holding positions in the node, and just how important every node is was like a key element for me of how that DeFi works. And like without it, it doesn't function properly, / the more that it is there, it creates more security for the system, and less capable for it to be attacked from several fronts. So that was really inspiring for me. And I got into it, and my friend got me into NFTs. He bought me a couple of zombie chains on the Cardano chain just to get me into it. I got some Bitcoin, got some Sol, and just sort of started dabbling and seeing what was up, because I didn't really know. It took me ages to figure out a wallet. But yeah, that was sort of where it all happened, and I'm just curious to see how it unravels as we sort of see. And for me, as above, so below is such a beautiful tenet that I love to live by. You mentioned a couple of Hermetic principles in your previous podcasts. The Kybalion is a huge one for me that I love, and I see that reflected in crypto and the DeFi space. And right now, I've been highly enjoying Gary Cardone. Yeah.
I met him last week, actually.
Oh, did ya? Oh, man. Oh, I didn't even know. I knew his brother Grant, and I saw Gary, and he was like Grant, but like chilled out, like a mellow dude. And like
they're twins. For those who don't know, Gary Cardone and Grant Cardone are twins. And so when you see him, you're like, oh, wait, that's Grant Cardone. But he's like a chilled out, super logical, like crypto guy that's building some crypto accounting software.
Oh man, he's so cool. Like he's working with Node 40 as well and doing other stuff. But like I love his accent as well, man. I don't know what it is, but the way that he talks, like I love it.
Yeah.
But he's full Bitcoin, and I love it because he's a big wig guy, He's like worked in a lot of big money, but I really feel that he's feeling the grassroots nature of where crypto, or like he's Bitcoin, but like what Bitcoin is and what it can mean for the people and what it can mean for the future of what's holding with humanity. So a lot of interesting stuff for me, but like curious to see where you're at, because I know you've been to a conference recently as well and talking. Man, I didn't know you talked to Gary. Love to know how that went. But what about yourself, man? What's crypto mean to you? What is it for you right now?
Yeah, well, I think in many ways, like I'm still trying to figure out what my role is and what the right use case for it is. But I think the thing that has been most salient in my experience with crypto is that with aligned incentives, there is an impetus to bring groups of people to similar ideas and to move people in similar directions. And so, ever since the 90s, I created a social network at my high school, before MySpace, Facebook, all of these things. And we used it as a way to organize people and do school pranks and create interesting clothing that would fit within the dress code that we had. And so the internet in general, was kind of the first step towards, this is how we can utilize collective consensus, like this agreement on certain ideas, and organize around those ideas. And I think what blockchain and Web3 brings, Bitcoin and beyond, is the ability to take that to the next level. Because there's one thing. The internet did a great job of giving everybody a voice and allowing everybody to have their own broadcast network. However, if you really want to, make brick and mortar things happen, there has to be boots on the ground and people that are actually engaging ideas. And crypto, when done right, I think offers a really interesting way to incentivize action and incentivize thinking in certain directions. And so, I've used it effectively in my businesses to garner community and build brands around the projects that I work with using digital merchandise. But I think crypto as a whole, if nothing else, opened up a philosophical question that I don't think many people had really considered until they go down the crypto rabbit hole. And that is, what is money? And once you really start to think about what money is, you recognize that everything is illusory, like everything is an illusion. And I'm really into simulation theory right now, and I think the question, what is money, is one of those questions that kind of strips you down naked and forces you to kind of have to feel through how little you actually understood about what was happening and how economies are organized. And of course, economies are the things that sovereign governments use to move people. And so if governments are using economies to move people in certain directions, then crypto is kind of the counter or antithesis to that, where the people now have a mechanism to build their own aligned incentives and their own movements. And it's one of the things that I think it makes crypto both incredibly interesting and maybe scary to people that are currently in power, because just like the internet allowed us to know what everybody was thinking, and it allowed everybody to be a broadcast mechanism so that we could see into all the dark corners of the world. Well, now what that did is all of that information created big feelings about the way that we want our world to be. And crypto is one of several mechanisms, I think, that allow us to capture attention in an interesting way and direct it towards ideas and projects that maybe historically would have been government funded. So I'll pause there and we can take that in whatever direction that you want. But I think that the fun part of crypto for me is just that it's such a philosophical conversation. And what you see in crypto almost always is that people recognize that they've either been lied to or they've fed into misinformation for most of their lives. And once you take that on and really process that, a whole new world opens up to you, because it's like now you've seen the wizard behind the curtain.
So what do you think then is what do you see the technology being able to do for the people on a spiritual level, on like a personal spiritual level, like you said, like liberation and freedom? What do you think what kind of vision do you see for humanity in the future if that takes that route?
Yeah, well, ultimately, I think creativity is currency. So I don't believe that any technology saves humanity. Humanity will save itself, and I think that there's plenty of ways that humanity can learn to thrive regardless of what economies are doing. But essentially, what crypto does is it gives a set of Legos that are connected to financial incentives, and so it's kind of a way to have your creativity go gangbusters, because you're able to um you're able to build things at a bigger level than maybe you could have if you were just a solopreneur. You know, historically, if you wanted to really build a team and go after a large goal, or solve a big problem, usually the route was that you, one, had to have incredible connections, two, you had to have a really good idea or proof of concept, and three, you had to play the politics of venture capital funding. And one of the things that crypto allows you to do is basically Kickstarter on crack. You can have an idea and you can use various crypto mechanisms to raise money to fund that idea without having to have Wall Street and venture capital, you know, with their teeth and parameters in your project.
And that's kind of what I like. I love that you said that the creativity is currency, because that kind of ties in my mind to the AI thing, right? Of what's going on and the AI conversations that I had. And I definitely see, you know, it's going to be this beautiful, wonderful, crazy, also a little bit scary thing that's coming into the world right now, of a birthing of a new whatever that's going to be. And I definitely hear a lot of the conversation going towards, it's going to make so much of humanity redundant. You know, humans are just going to become a thing and it's going to just do its own thing, right? But I really hold true to the nature of spirit and what flows through humanity, and that creativity, that I don't doubt the AI is going to have its own creativity in its own way, but that humanity has a certain creativity that we can tap into that is just beyond words, you know, like beyond beautiful, and a spontaneity that sometimes I feel is incalculable. Like, I was at a cafe with my girlfriend and we're watching these two children play, right? They're playing peekaboo, and like one girl's wearing blue tutu, purple tutu. And the girl with the blue tutu, she's just like, you know, walking along and she's like going to her spot. And then every so often she's walking and just goes, "Whee!" and does a jump, you know, and then just like rolls around for a moment, you know, like seems so erratic. And maybe a machine looks at it, like may not understand what's going on. And like, even I couldn't tell you exactly what the mechanisms are, but like so beautiful, you know? Mm-hmm. And I love that. And like you said, with the crypto and like, you know, the venture capital not having to come into play, not that it won't be there, but like that people can really start kickstarting their programs with crypto, and like with the usage of the AI, you know, like I'm totally looking forward to my own Jarvis, you know, that I get to work with and play with, and like, but work with, you know, yeah, not it working me. So that's a very interesting paradigm. And funnily enough, for me, if I see AI, this is my view, it's just like, if it's truly objective, sees so much data, right, really examines all these little elements, then I'm like, because to me, spirit is, it is what it is. It's foundational. It's a given to me in my life. And that's my life and my journey and my walk. So I wonder if the machine would find the same thing. If it went through it all and was like, okay, oh, a human being is a spiritual being. Oh, it needs these conditions to thrive. It's like, oh, maybe it'll understand that the humans can do something that the machine can't, you know? And maybe it understands that both require each other. It's kind of how I see it.
Right. Well, I think, you know, ultimately it comes down to a conversation of consciousness, right? And I think that the thing that right now separates us from the AI is, you know, something that I would call spiritual discernment. So, you know, when I'm working with ChatGPT or Claude or any of these AIs, and I use them heavily, like they're a great workhorse, but they require somebody to steer them, and they require someone's creative discernment or spiritual discernment to direct things in a certain way. And so, you know, the way that I view AI is the way that I see a director on a film set. So, you know, a film set requires hundreds of people to make a film. and yet we still say the director made the film, because ultimately they were the one holding the vision and making sure that everything came together and matched the emotional tone of the way they wanted to tell the story. We never say, oh, well, he didn't really direct it because he had 100 people working on the set with him. That's just not how it works. And right now it's kind of taboo to be using AI for art related stuff. But that stigma will go away, just like it did with digital cameras, just like it did with Photoshop. These same conversations happen every time we have a major upgrade in technology. And ultimately, I believe that the differentiation will be that until machines have consciousness, and we can debate whether or not that's ever going to be possible, spiritual discernment is the thing that makes something emotionally tangible to other people, and it's the thing that wins hearts and minds, and so AI in many ways will replace the hustle harder workforce workhorse mentality of humanity, but that opens people up to actually developing something that I think has been trampled on, which is spiritual discernment. And that should if people have more time to develop spiritual discernment as a muscle rather than just doing busy work, which is what almost everybody in corporate America does if you're in a middle management or below position. If you no longer have to do that and you can focus on truly developing creativity or spiritual discernment, this to me opens up a really interesting golden age of creativity. And we have no idea what us using AI as a paintbrush will yield, but it's going to be awesome.
Oh man, how good. Hey, like, it's going to be wild. And like, so well said, John. Like, I think that creativity, and when I was listening to Gary Carter and talk to Mark Yusko, I think it was, they were discussing Bitcoin, all this sort of stuff. And, like Gary's talking about has like, like my brother is like talking about he's the king of doing, and like I'm doing too much, like I need to chill out. Like I need more time. And and then Mark was just like, yeah, because he's obviously very busy. He was a very busy, high-end guy, but he said he had a kid and he'd go home and, 6 months old baby, and he would have to spend time with the baby. Just being with the baby, you got to watch babies, you got to be careful. And he said during this time when he was just with the baby for months, he said he had some of the best ideas of his life.
Well, and it's because when you reduce resistance, your creative faculties turn on, like the satellite dish of your intuition, like your ability to kind of tap into the ether opens up. And I believe that certain ideas get seeded to the planet, when it's time for an idea that can bring about some kind of evolutionary benefit to humanity. When that idea is ready to come in, it's sitting in the air, almost like something that could be accessed via Wi-Fi. And it's the people that are totally tapped in and tuned in to their own creativity and their spiritual discernment that then pull that and interpret that and bring that through their particular art form. And sometimes that idea is going to come through a musician as music. Sometimes it's going to come through a builder as architecture. Sometimes it's going to come through a technologist as some kind of technological medium that opens people up. One of the things that I'm most excited about for AI is that I believe that the entire therapeutic industry, mental health industry, will be turned over to AI, and that everyone will have a therapist and a coach in their pocket. And mental health is a huge issue right now, because mainstream media and all of the things that Western society has made important absolutely wreck your mental health. And so being able to have a technological friend is ultimately what it will become, who can process you in each moment as you have big feelings come up. I think is going to be a really interesting, probably have the most impact on productivity of any technology that we've seen yet.
And I can't remember where it was, but I think I saw there was a study or just a test that was done with like people talking to GPs and nurses about just general stuff that they're going through. Another one where they're talking to an AI and they're like, which one gave you better personal feedback? Like, oh, this machine was like so comforting, was so there for me.
Right. Well, because unless someone is incredibly present with you, they have other stuff going on in the background almost always, and so because of that, they're missing some of the data flow that you're sending to them, and an AI is perfect at picking it up. And when you look at some of the tests that they've done with AI's ability to pick up on micro expressions, it's insane how good they are at that. And that's what good emotional processing is. It's recognizing, where did the eyes go? Did something twitch? Was there perspiration? And being able to pick up on that is really just about being able to read minute data sets. And AIs are great at that. And they will become infinitely better as they machine learn in a therapy setting. And then they'll be able to literally bring you out of whatever funk you're in just by pulling it out and having a conversation with this AI.
And I think time is that huge commodity that like an AI can offer, because you can be at home with it. You can spend as much time as you need. Because my girlfriend's a doctor, and you know, they only have so much time for consults. Do you know what I mean? She's like, I want to, she's like, I want to, but I got 20 other patients today. And she's like, and she was actually saddened by that result that she heard, that like the AI has more, time to be caring for a person. And because she's like, she knows how burnt out doctors and nurses are getting because of this just high flow of just dealing with a lot of probably not superficial, but like a lot of surface level things that requires you to go through and talk out first. And then after that, like I have a friend that works in like a call center that she's like a triage nurse. So they take on board a lot of these people before they go to doctors and all that sort of stuff. But I believe their company is recording everything, and I believe they're importing it so that slowly they're trying to build, I think, another learning tool.
Yeah. Well, technology, we talked a little bit before the call. Technology is a double-edged sword, right? And so it can cut in both directions, and I think that there will be incredible innovations, and then there will be stuff that doesn't work, right? And so, one of the interesting things about crypto and companies that are backed by crypto is that there's really more of a free market dynamic where if something's working, then there's immediate feedback from the market on that. And if something isn't working, then there's immediate feedback on that. And so it creates more of a meritocracy where good ideas can rise to the surface. And how do we define good ideas? Well, it's consensus. And if we believe that reality is subjective in nature and in any way, but especially if we buy into the hypothesis that perhaps we live in some kind of consciousness simulation, well, what are the rules of the simulation? They're basically a 51% consensus, just like any blockchain is. And so, one of the things that I've been journaling about just for shits and giggles is, how interesting it would be to create basically technological tools that allow for a kind of 51% collective agreement or vector attack on reality, where if you could get 51% of the conscious observers of reality to all agree that the sky is going to be purple today, would the sky be purple? And I think that what we see with blockchain and consensus blockchains, where basically you have these nodes that have to all be in agreement on what the ledger says, and then that agreement becomes the truth of the ledger. I believe that reality is structured in a similar way, and that if enough people choose wholeheartedly without doubt to experience something in a certain way, that they will have that experience, and whether that's reality kind of bifurcating into a separate reality that then your consciousness can float to like a ventriloquist and experience, or whether there's one reality that is just guided by that 51% observer principle. It's interesting to just contemplate, like, okay, if that were the case, then what are the control mechanisms that could be used against us, and what are the ones that we could use to humanity's benefit? And I think we've seen with mainstream programming, what this looks at a psychological level, where the same handful of companies own all of the media outlets, and then they literally send verbatim the exact same talking points to every single newspaper, to every single network, to every single blog and media group that they own. And in this way, they're able to form consensus, right? And so, at least at a psychological level, they're able to implant a reality in people's minds. And if we were to take that a step further, we could argue that they're actually changing the way that reality renders itself by winning hearts and minds in that way.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. I see it like just so hard, and I'm not going to go down the conspiracy wagon, like that's a big one, but just like I see so many things in place, not even conspiracy, like I read a paper, John Lilly, and he's talking about modifying human agents and stuff, and just the nature of brainwashing, where it came from, how it came to be, like a very technical approach, and John Lilly was the one that created the float tank. But really something fascinating that, and like the whole double-edged sword nature of technology, right? And I love that and I was actually going to go to that point of like, yeah, the 51%, if we were to all agree, would reality change? And I was like, is that already what's happening right now? Like you said about money as well, like what is money? What are we agreeing to be money? Is that just a consensus reality that we're all just like high-fiving and like knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, you want to buy the almighty dollar? Just agreeing to this reality. But I really would be curious to see how that table would flip if the power went back into the hands of the people. And that's why I'm super curious about crypto. Like, I'm wearing an NFT hoodie at the moment, and I know Carl got something from you as well. That was some sort of NFT merch put onto a hoodie. And I said, Carl, right now we possess something that I know, like central, like a fiat came into crypto to make that happen, but a lot of that's circulating crypto, and that crypto got me this thing,
Right.
Something became tangible.
Yeah. Well, and it is one of those things. I mean, the experiment of crypto is, what do parallel economies look like, and how do you properly balance them, and what's the game theory that creates the right incentives to be able to float an economy? Essentially, governments are game masters. They're floating the economy by setting certain rules, by putting certain narratives out, by creating campaigns to get people to move in certain directions. And, we're now learning how to do that at the, civilian level. And in many ways, when you have more minds crunching on something like that, more innovation is possible, because innovation in many ways is just like machine learning. It's like, let's make as many mistakes as possible so that we can figure out what the optimal path is. And so the more people that are executing on various creative stances on economy balance, the more that you end up landing on the idea that wins the hearts and minds of that 51%. And it only, if my neighbor's selling their house and they're willing to accept Bitcoin, well, then that's all that's required for the parallel economy to exist. Now you're starting to see that there's all of these, interesting new financial tools where they're creating things like crypto-backed mortgages and allowing you to do crypto-backed down payments. And so there's going to be a lot of really interesting technological advancements to just money in general. And the normie public may not ever even know it as cryptocurrency, because it might just be introduced to them as some kind of digital reward system or a cashback system. But ultimately, the engine that will be running it will be some kind of a consensus mechanism, but I try not to get too bogged down in what does the technology have to look like, because I think that the ultimate technology is consciousness and our ability to work with consciousness, and that in many ways you can remove yourself from the matrix, I guess is the best way to say it, solely by recognizing that even though these technological tools are fun, they're still part of the illusion. So just because you're an orc that carries an axe in the video game, and you figure out how to efficiently make axes and then sell axes to other people, and then because of that you create this kind of parallel economy where axes are an asset that people are seeking out. Just because you're able to do that in the game doesn't mean that you're not in a video game, and it doesn't mean that a more efficient way to do it would be to just change the source code, and so I'm always in a back and forth with myself on, okay, how much of what I'm taking physical action on is from a place of scarcity, is from a place that I have to protect my meat sack, versus it being the thing that truly lights me up, that is the creative expression, the highest creative expression that I could have in that moment. And I really try to aim towards, if this isn't the highest creative expression that I can have right now of whatever ideas or emotions that are currently within me, then why am I doing it? Because reality is just a canvas for painting that, and it doesn't serve us to get too bogged down in the minutia of how to make the axe, because the axe isn't real.
And the axe is not really, like you said, the most important thing that you're focusing on. It's still the tool, it's still this. And I like that you kind of went towards it, because we were talking about as above, so below, and the reflection of the world, and how the internal world, the external world reflects each other. What do you see then, from your perspective, happening on that soul humanity level that is reflected right now in this technology, like crypto and AI, but just in technology in general, like just how proliferated and how much is being created and how it's just escalating so quickly? Do you see a reflection of that in the human soul and spirit as well, or do you see something else?
Yeah, well, in many ways, I see a reflection. I honestly think that if you get really good at working with an AI, you'll become better at prayer, because prayer is prompting. And so if you know how to prompt an AI, then you'll become infinitely better at prompting reality. And what you have to train yourself in is relaxing your mind enough to get the answer back from the universe. But in many ways, the universe is the biggest AI. It's where the most interesting information lives. And so as I work with AI more and more, I find that my prayers become better. I become better at utilizing them as a way to manifest and really open up a portal to receive intuitive information. So that's one way that I think AI can be a huge benefit to a prayer or meditative practice, is that if you start to treat God or the universe in a similar way as you treat a search engine or an AI, you recognize that answers are available through a non-technological means. And that while sometimes we utilize AI because it's the path of least resistance, and we don't always want to just sit there for an hour and wait for the answer. And so there's an efficiency in having answers come through the AI. And then spirit, where our consciousness comes in, is our spiritual discernment says whether the answer that the AI gave us was meant for us. So I use AI all the time to come up with ideas, but ultimately I'm like, no, do it different. No, say it like this. Okay, take that idea, but merge it with this guy's thinking. And then eventually you get to a place where you're like, ah, that's it. But it required me using the receptors that I have in my meat sack to know how close is this to dialing in what the most optimal timeline for my soul is. And so all technological tools are just a means of expressing that soul creative energy, and more importantly, solving the soul puzzle through using spiritual discernment. The other way that I think that reality mirrors this technology is just that the more that, like, I'm reading the simulation hypothesis by Rizwan Virk right now, and he was a game developer at MIT and ran one of their game development labs there. And so he really lays out like what the structure of a game is and how virtual worlds kind of came to be. And by laying out the progression of the technology, it's very easy to take the jump to, well, with enough time, probably this technology will become indistinguishable from reality. And so then how do we know that we're not already in one? So why would we create a simulation to live in? If we are the authors of reality, why would we do that? Well, it's the same reason that we invent AI and that we have AI machine learn things. It's because by sending a robot in to make all the mistakes and to crunch all of the data and to make all of the choices, ultimately that gets the best answer gets seeded up to the top. And so I believe that, if we live in a simulation, there's a couple of different things that could happen. Maybe another society created us and we were NPCs that are slowly becoming sentient. And this is an anomaly in that simulation, which would be similar to the premise of the Matrix. And we can wake up out of this simulation and basically take over the script. But the other thing is, the other idea that I tend to lean towards is that our higher selves created the simulation just to have a better understanding of our emotional capacity and to put us into certain scenarios so that we could truly glean the benefit of having deep experiences at every part of the emotional scale.
Oh, for sure, man. And like, I remember this back in the day when I was doing all my UFO research and stuff and listening to guys that, had been in contact with the Andromedans and whatnot. Like, truth or not, I don't really mind, but like, I like the stories that come from it. And one of the stories that came from it was one of the guys was in contact with the Andromeda galaxy, and they're fifth dimensional beings, and they making contact with Earth, etc. But they didn't have the capacity to create art like we did. Mm-hmm. Like what they did is they recorded planetary sounds that were coming, and then they would blend those sounds together, and that was our music, and that was this greatest attraction for them to us. It's like, and if we're still young in the game, but we're here and now in the moment, which means we're the newest edition of whatever is coming. And our creativity, that the fact that we can just write songs out of nowhere, paint a picture from our mind, like we just take it for granted. But like, who knows what other civilizations or the high mind, like you said, maybe they can't do that. And maybe they're, like you said, trying to really experience at a different level. And this is what's happening to us at this moment. I really love that you said that, because I think with what's happening with technology and all of its creation, I love it. I enjoy it. And, so many of my things are technology and its creations. But I do see sometimes in the eyes of just everybody around me, sometimes feel a little bit like, oh, I'm nothing, because technology is all this highest wonderful thing. And like, I always just want to remind everybody, it's just like how wonderful, how beautiful, how powerful you really are if you just understand your faculties, like what you are capable of.
Right. Well, and an idea that just came to me was that maybe one of the use cases for a consciousness simulation like the one that we potentially live in is to train individual consciousness units on focus. And so how do you train somebody on focus? Well, you slowly turn on their physical faculties where they're capable of bringing in more and more data, and they acclimate to the ability to take in all of this data and process it. But then you basically build a choose your own adventure style reality experience. You build a buffet and you say, let's overwhelm them with so much data that they have to learn how to use their mental acuity to navigate reality. And so in many ways, the goal of reality is to learn to have singular focus and to recognize that in your singular focus, you then expand what you're focusing on, because we think that the whole world exists, but if anything in quantum physics is accurate, really what exists is what we can perceive right now. Everything else is living in some kind of a quantum potential until we turn and observe it. What's behind me is only being rendered because I have a camera that allows me to see what's behind me, and you can see what's behind me. And so we have this kind of Venn diagram rendering system that's happening right now based on what each of us can observe, but the rest of the world doesn't actually exist right now. It exists in some kind of a quantum potential, and until we engage with it, we don't collapse that wave into something tangible. And so for me, the concept of prayer is actually a use case for learning focus, learning how to be a visionary, and holding a singular vision so vividly that when you do observe something in physical reality, it renders itself more akin to the vision than something random. And I think that is one of the primary directives of this reality is, hey, there's so much stuff to focus on here. And if you try to focus on it all, you're going to scramble yourself, and that's going to look like depression. And so the way that you empower yourself is by learning to have focus towards the things that are most interesting to your soul. And you feel that by this lifting energy when you look at something. That's how you know there's something in that piece of reality for you. Because when you look at it, you're like, ooh, that's juicy. I want to go there. And it doesn't matter what's there for you. That's what I've called, and what Abraham Hicks has called, the breadcrumb path. All you need to know is what the next piece is. And then from that next nodal point, okay, now what's interesting? And so then you move there. And from that next nodal point, okay, now what's interesting? And I think that mastery over this reality is about learning how to be that singularly focused and not needing to bring everybody up the mountain with you, because if you can render from a perspective of your vision, then ultimately all of those people come with you anyway, because they're just reflections of your emotional state anyway.
For sure, man. For sure. And I've always been saying that of like, and it kind of goes back, Hollywood movies and how they, create these storylines, and without going into the back of it, but just storylines are created, storylines are sold, and that creates a certain vision of life and where that takes us within our imagination. But I really loved how in Australia, the Indigenous Australians here, their primary focus for everyone in Australia was the dreaming, right? Like, to be connected in the dreaming was the most important thing. Like you said, a single focal point that they all came together in. And I truly believe that's still possible for humanity to be connected in the dreaming. But the dream can look like so many different things. But it's still a single focal point of connecting in that space. And like you said, it's so beautifully in prayer. Because if you connect in prayer, if we connect in prayer, like, that's unifying us at a very foundational, very powerful level, and a place that's hopefully inclusive of everybody. It's like, hey, if we're agreeing that we're in prayer, I probably couldn't care less about what your prayer is. I probably want to hear about your prayer. I want to know about your prayer. Like, what's your prayer? Maybe that can be part of my prayer, So It is a single point of vision, but it's all encompassing at the same time.
Yeah. I think some of it, we get caught up in these kind of duality narratives, or oppositional structures within the framework of reality, and then it's like, oh well, a Muslim's prayer isn't the type of prayer that I want to condone as a Christian or as a Hindu, and I think that misses that reality does bifurcate based on your focus. If we look at like any type of many worlds interpretation, in the past I've called it like the alphabet of John, or the alphabet of consciousness, where I think that I could get Kenji, at any letter of the alphabet, but based on what I need to learn about myself and the experience and insights that I'm looking to have, and the energy that I still need to process that might be stagnated in my system, you're going to show up at letter J, and letter J is the thing that is most effective at prodding me the way that an acupuncture needle would prod me to move the energy that needs to move. And it's a collective experience, and so we're meeting. Your J may be my L, and so we're meeting in this Venn diagram of energy, where then I'm going to trigger or inspire you in a way that is most conducive to moving the energy that you need. And the reason that I say this is that I believe that everyone can have their dream, because the more that you focus on your dream, the more that you move into a bifurcated world that represents that dream. And you will manifest everybody on the planet in such a way that allows you to have the highest aspect of that dream, assuming you're not oppositional in your thinking and constantly thinking that somebody's going to take your dream from you. And I think this is the problem with the political structure that we have, especially in America, but really globally right now, is that there's such an oppositional nature to it that we think that if one side gets their dream, it means we can't have ours. And I don't think that that's how reality works. I think that you focus on your dream, and then you have an experience that the other side comes to see your dream, or you find a common ground, and whatever you're capable of seeing the other side compromise to is how that plays into your dream. But the conflict is going to be the part where you didn't dream your dream big enough, like God or the master consciousness has an even bigger dream. And so you actually need some iron on iron to sharpen that dream, because every time you have a little bit of opposition, you can get more clear on what the vision actually is. And then if you can steal your focus towards what that new vision is, now that you have this new detail, then I believe that you can shift all of reality to having that experience. But we limit our ability to do these things by taking oppositional forces and getting frustrated about it, because what we're saying is we're defining those things as, oh, this is counter to my dream. This is going to prevent me from having my dream. But it's impossible to perceive something that would prevent you from having your dream. Everything that you're perceiving is actually a nodal input of what will actually allow you to have your dream.
And I had it's kind of like, I had a thought of the whole, when you're talking about the J and the L, we're still just part of this whole group in the end. We're just all in it together, right? And tying back to your discernment, your sort of discernment within, and is this choice or is this prayer something that's just about my meat sack? Or is this prayer something that's beyond just myself? And for me, I don't know when it was, I think like when, the boundary started dissolving between me and reality, and I started to lose this sense of like, I am just me. Like I started to feel the world inside of me, other people inside of me, like everyone's moving through me. Life is happening. I'm part of it. It's part of me. And I realize I am everybody and everybody is me.
Yeah.
And so if people start to see that discernment of like, am I in this by myself? But then if they can break down the boundaries and see fundamentally, it's like, if people around me are happy and I'm living a life that's like wholesome towards everybody, and that's where that prayer is coming from, then like you said, like so many dreams can be happening at the same time, but we're meeting at such a beautiful place, you know. And this is why spirit is so, you know, important to me, because to me it's foundational, you know. It's coming from, it's like the blueprint before the architecture is built, you know. So like everything comes from it. So if we're coming from that base level, you almost don't even know, like you say, it does. I don't know what the technology is going to become, crypto, AI. I don't know how these things are all going to change, but I'm not really that fussed, you know. Like if humanity's soul is in line and working towards like you said, our highest purpose, the greatest vision that is most fulfilling in the deepest sense with prayer, then I just don't see anything wrong with it, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's one of those things where when you develop a relationship with reality itself, you don't ever feel alone. Like you don't ever feel abandoned, be it because you recognize that you're contributing to everything, and everything is contributing to you, and there's a deep sense of satisfaction when you really get that at an intuitive level. And one of the ways that you get that is just by sitting in silence, not needing external inputs, and allowing whatever feelings to come up, and you recognize how much you've relied on external things to mood regulate. And once you no longer need externals to mood regulate, that really puts you into a place of power, because you can no longer be manipulated emotionally. And it allows you to step into a place of leadership where you're more capable of winning hearts and minds, because you no longer require external input for your own validation. And that can be a really powerful place to be in. And you know, I think for me, I'm interested in being as present as I can with the clay that's in front of me. So whatever I'm perceiving in reality is my clay, and I'm going to do whatever the most interesting thing I can do with that clay is. And if it's AI, I'll do it with AI. And if EMP goes off, I'll figure out how to rebuild the world without electricity. You know, it's all an adventure to me. And I think one of the interesting places that you can get to once you form that relationship with reality, it is that existential funk of some unknown thing uprooting you no longer worries you. And the unknown actually becomes exciting, because you know yourself as being so capable that whatever is presented with you, you're going to be able to use it for your unique creative expression. And to me, that's what's fun about reality.
Oh man, so much so. And like that kind of ties like to like where the crypto and, you know, not so much AI, but the crypto part for me of like the security that's slowly coming from that. I'm super curious to see where, like, you know, decentralized, you know, finance, but like, you know, personal holdings and what that means for someone's security and privacy of their, not like money at the beginning, but I was thinking, like, I was listening to about like a house contract, and they're talking about like, yeah, if that contract is gone, man, that house is no longer yours, etc. But now in Bitcoin, the runes are coming out and they're etching into it, right? So it's just like, if your house contract gets etched into that blockchain, man, it's just like a certain level of privacy is taken care of, security is taken care of. And like, I've been living on a property here at the moment. I built a house for myself, and like, we came here with a gentleman's agreement. We shook hands, and that's what it meant to make the deal. But for me, like, I've just been living with tenancy agreements, you know, all the time. You signed a piece of paper. I didn't think twice about it. But when I came here, I really noticed, like, when you sign that paper, what kind of security and privacy that you kind of get, and a sense of relief that allows an individual. And this is like a quick quote I'd love to read, small one, but it's John Lilly, and the double-edged sort of technology as well, because he created the float tank. It was originally for brain manipulation, sensory isolation, so you could brainwash and create agents. But then he started flipping to the alternative side, and he started using the float tank for self-discovery. And what he noticed is this nature of privacy. And it says, for optimal conditions, privacy requires the firm assurance to the subject of his control of the secrecy of his individual data indefinitely into the future. Maximum ego freedom and voluntariness of the subject in these experiments can be achieved through such kinds of privacy.
And that's like what we call a safe space, right? Like it's a place where you're free to explore the internal dialogue and conscious musings of yourself without hindrance and without fear of judgment.
For sure, man. For sure. And what's happening with the world, obviously you see privacy's breached. It's like there's no freedom. Like you can't see, everyone's watching all the time. And it's not conducive to like human spiritual soul evolution. It's like, when I'm doing theater, you need to know that those people are there to not judge you when you're expressing yourself, So I'm super curious. I'm loving technology for where it goes, but discernment is key. People power, just keep a sharp mind, I think is important.
Right. Well, and I guess we can close with I'll have a much more surface level quote. It's from Spider-Man, and it's with great power comes great responsibility. Because I think one of the things that we're seeing in crypto is that there are incredible financial instruments to people that do allow you to explore a whole new realm of freedom when it comes to your finances, and yet there's a deeper level of personal responsibility that's required, because there's not a customer service hotline that you can call. You can't go yell at somebody, a teller at the bank, and tell them that they did it wrong. You have to take personal responsibility for your own finances. And to me, that is one of the things that wizardry requires, is there has to be a deep commitment to personal responsibility. And you see it when you go in the float tank or when you sit with yourself. Like what you're doing is you're creating a container for you to be responsible for yourself. There's nobody else tending to you. You're creating a technological space with the float tank that allows you to explore yourself, but ultimately you're with your own thinking, and you have to be responsible for the decision space and the conclusions that you draw from your own thinking. And if you go into silence often enough, you will come in contact with the darkest version of yourself. And that's required to know what the lightest version looks like. And it's better to go there consciously and understand what you're capable of than to have it seep out in moments where you're given undeserved power.
Oh man, freedom isn't safe, freedom isn't safe, and it requires due diligence. Like you said, it requires responsibility, and requires people to have to hold their own keys. And, knowing that, like, my Kung Fu teacher is probably the strongest man I've ever met in my life. Like, I've done a lot of mixed martial arts, and the greatest thing I've learned is if you can hold yourself so strong, because right now, if I got into a fight realistically, I'd still probably hurt people. But I know that he could get into a fight and not hurt anybody because he's so strong. Right. That's kind of what I mean.
Right. And it's there's a quote that I'll butcher, but it's something like knowing how to use a sword, but always keeping it sheathed. Like once you really know how to wield a sword, you never have to pull it out, because no one would dare cross you. And at the energetic level, it's once you're no longer in conflict with yourself at any level, then you're not attracting that forward in any way. And so if someone were to bring a conflicting energy to you, it would just be a mismatch and would wash off of you and resolve itself rather quickly.
And I see like technological powers coming to us as humanity, but with it, I think spiritual power is also coming to us. And that's something we also have to learn to manage and deal, because with that comes influence, with that comes power in its own regards. So
right. And I'm super stoked for and optimistic about humanity, because I do think that there's a spiritual awakening happening, and I think that, you know, it's possible that AI and technology could lend to the acceleration of that. But whether it does or doesn't, there's a beautiful opportunity for anyone to wake up to the Maya, to wake up to the illusion of reality, and to recognize that there's more happening here than you can perceive with your physical senses. And tapping into that, you recognize that there's a relational value to reality, and it's why we personify it as a god. But you can have a relationship with reality, with nature, with God, with whatever label you want to give it, but it will be the deepest relationship that you ever have. And in it, you will have the utmost confidence and conviction to go out and live your best life and to express your creativity in the absolute most authentic and largest possible way that you can. So with that, Kenji, it's been fun to be on this timeline with you and to unpack some of these things. We'll have to do it again. Any closing words?
Oh, no, just thank you, man. Really appreciate the time. And I'm just looking forward to more smiles, man. That's all I see. People walking around, man. They're caught up. They're caught up in the Maya, in their heads, in their minds. And I just would love for them to pop out one day and see the sunshine for what it really is and smell the roses. So thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
A sense of humor is a superpower. So God bless our comedian crew, and Kenji, we'll see you in the next one.